Hello YouTubers, Chilios2222 coming at you here with a sweet little 38 special and 357 video. I'm featuring right now today mostly this Colt. This is a detective special. This is an original detective special. It's not a reproduction. It's actually in pretty good condition. Found it in a collection, which is pretty much what I do. And when I'm out there, I've been into collecting for quite some time. So I've got a little collection. This is your 38 detective special. And of course, we're going to show you that it's clear. Obviously, never ever point this at your hand like I'm doing, but this is for a video. And I have pre-cleared this firearm. But we're going to show you that the firearm is clear. You would do that with this 38. First, you would never ever pick up a 38 that had the hammer back. You'd have to wonder who left that firearm in that condition. That's your hammer right there. Trigger, cylinder, and your cylinder release or cylinder latch. It can be known by different names. On these old detectives and maybe some of the new detectives, they had this shape latch right here, which you're going to see. I did bring some firearms for comparison so you can see actually the differences. So that's your Colt detective cylinder latch, 38 special. This is a Smith & Wesson J-frame release, and that's a locking hole right there. You can see both hammers are down. They're not back. Down in double action mode, you can see the difference there. That's the cylinder release or latch. And on these older firearms, they had this kind of rounded piece. It's almost like a bulb. So we'll clear it there. See inside the cylinder. And the difference with these older 38 Detective Special, I don't know if they're doing a current model on this, but I'm featuring this old one here. Just as good. You have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And showing you clear on the J-frame. This is just a Smith & Wesson J-frame. And you have 5 empty on there. Then for size comparison, when you're looking at the J-frame versus the Detective, they're pretty close. As far as their girth, with those 6 rounds, the width, it gets you the width right there. You can see on these two, pretty close, right? And it's almost hard to tell with a 5 or a 6 on the width, but there is a slight difference. Those are your grips. This obviously has the modern grip, and these were your old grips, and I'm not sure if these were a poly or a wood. I'm sure it could be either and still pull off the same effect. On the Smith & Wesson, their logo, see they did their logo there and not on the grips. And then on the bottom there, they usually have a serial number. On the Colts, they had the Rampant pony, I believe that's called. Rampant, I think, just means wild, I guess. Running pony. So you can see that on the Colt. And that's on both sides. So on those old Colts, they were, doing their advertising right there with the Colt logo. On the handgun itself, as far as numbers or designations go, that's the right front of the barrel. And you can see too a sighting difference. See that rounded sight? And the ejector doesn't have anything in front of it. That's this piece right here. So there's nothing in front of that. On the J-frame, you've got air weight written on the side. Springfield, Mass, Smith & Wesson. And again, another logo on there. You see that on the top left. And then nothing on the barrel. So it looks like that was kind of a theme. The right front of the barrel really didn't have any marking that I can see. And then the left front of the barrel has your cartridge designation, I guess, or just a name to the pistol. And this just says 38 detective, it looks like, special. So 38 special. Should get a light so you can see that a little bit better. Apologize for the delay, but hopefully you can, now maybe you can see this a little better. Apologize for that. Sometimes it's hard to get the right angle. 38 Detective Special. You can always fast forward if my videos annoy you. And again, I apologize. If you like my videos and these different firearms, please like and subscribe. So 38 Detective Special. I thought this was kind of an interesting little firearm, little blast from the past. One of the other differences you have on here, and of course I would never cock that back like that unless I was ready to fire. But to show you, you can see that firing pin right there. This actually strikes your primer. I don't like to bring ammunition to the table, but I did want to show you a word of caution on these. This is a 38 Special Plus P. So in these older handguns, this will fit without any issue, but you do not want to use 38 Special Plus P. So let's lower the hammer on that. And I'll show you that 38 Plus P really has no difference in length. And I hate to do this on camera, but this is just for an example, and we're going to get this out right away. So that's your 38 Special Plus P, which you do not want to use on this older firearm. You want to use a 38 standard pressure round. So if you do run into these out there, always double check with the manufacturer instructions as to whether they specify 38 Special standard velocity or a Plus P. Now I believe on this little guy, the little J-frame here, it was mighty nice of them to put 38 Smith & Wesson Special Plus P. So highlighting that, hopefully you can see that well there, get a little shadow, a little light. You can see Smith & Wesson, 38 Smith & Wesson Special Plus P, which is this round right here. So this is a 38 Smith & Wesson or 38 Special. You can see that on there. That's made by Federal, 38 Special Plus P. So I just want to point that out to you, just so you know when you're messing around with older firearms. Do be careful, be cautious, not only of the firearm itself, but whatever type of ammunition you decide to put into that older firearm, because there were changes through the years to the ammunitions that were manufactured. Some people know that and they say, duh, okay, I know that. Some people don't know that, but since I'm showing an older firearm, I really wanted you to be cognizant of that fact. Okay, on the inside of this firearm, you have a serial number, and I believe this was called the crane assembly. Correct me if I'm wrong, but that was your serial number for this firearm, and you can see that repeated again on the inside there. So that's your markation. Apparently they made a lot of these handguns. Colt was pretty prolific, if that's the proper word. Back in the day, they created a lot of these little firearms. This was a nice firearm for carry. This would easily go in a pocket. So depending on what pockets you used, gentlemen may not have had, you know, some specific pocket. A lot of times from the movies, you'll see them jam these into a waistband, or, you know, depending on the type of clothing that you were wearing, this could be something that you could carry. Reliable firearm, you could fire it with a very strong pull of this trigger, and very safe firearm actually. except for one point that some people will bring up to you, and it's debatable on the different years of these. Because of, I'll clear it again because I want to show you one thing. So we're clear. Because of this extended firing pin, you can see that there. I wanted to show you on the J-frame too, the difference. Let's clear that. You can see that there's no sharp piece on here. This is just blunted out. The actual piece that it strikes is inside here that has the sharp piece that goes through here, and that's what detonates your primer, if that makes any sense to you. But the issue with this is, possibly, would be if this firearm was dropped or struck and this somehow overcame whatever tension it has on here, it could potentially strike the primer of the round that's in there. So a lot of recommendations that I've seen, and again, could correct me if I'm wrong, but you just saw the firing pin go through there. Beautiful example. You see it there? So even just me decocking this, you can see that go through onto the chamber, and that could potentially strike a round. So again, I don't like to bring ammunition to the table, but it's me taking the risk, I guess, to show you guys. So dropping that on the primer, I don't know, could it detonate? Maybe. Not worth the chance. So a lot of times guys would just carry an empty under here. They just load up 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Leave that one empty. Make sure that goes into there. And then make sure the empty is underneath and you can see the other live rounds there. So just another point I wanted to bring up with the older firearm. If you were at a range and of course you had this pointed down range, I don't see a reason why not to load up your 6 rounds and then proceed that way, unless you were going to drop it or something. You could. Hopefully maybe you could set up on a table, and that way the handgun's not going to fall to the ground, and hopefully you're not a Butterfingers. But Colt 38 Special Detective, very, very cool firearm. I brought out another firearm for comparison just so you can see. We'll clear that as well. That's a Taurus, and this would be a 357 Magnum. Just wanted to show you a difference with 357 Magnum length versus 38 Special. Now this particular firearm here, this Taurus, this will chamber a 357 Magnum and a 38 Special. So they're the same size width-wise, just a difference in length. Hopefully that makes sense. When you see the rounds, you'll see why. So this is a 38 Special on the left. Sorry, 357 Magnum, don't get them confused. And a 38 Special on the right. And so marked on the bottoms, you can see 357 Magnum, made by PMC, and a 38 Special by Federal. Now, what happens if we try to put this 357 Magnum, not recommended, in a 38 Special chamber? Well, we already established the Colt was 38 Special, so we'll see what happens. Don't be stupid, right? That's a 357 Magnum as far as I can push it without tools, and that will not close. So this is denying you access to the 357 Magnum, which is a great thing because that would be the improper round for this pistol. So because of that length, it won't chamber into this older firearm and also this 38 Special chambered firearm. Will it go in a newer one? Don't try this at home, right? So this is your J-frame, Mark 38 Special Plus P. Will it chamber in there? Curious, right? They do make these in 357 also. No, it will not. Looks roughly the same and will not close inside your firearm, so there's no way you can rotate that cylinder and try to fire off this round. Not that it would be pretty if you actually did it like that. Probably get a lot of powder and unfriendly things coming back your direction. So that's your 38 special, or sorry, your 357. Again, it does not chamber and should not chamber in 38 special. Both of these are cleared and have their hammers down. Just wanted to show you those for comparison. J-frame in the front, and that's your Colt Detective Special. Very, very cool firearm. Now, as far as 357 Magnum goes, in this firearm, and rightfully so, even though it does not state 38 special, guess what? That's a 38 special going in. Hopefully you can see that there. And this is the 357 Magnum. You can see the difference because I pulled out different bullets, different rounds for this example, so they'd be obvious. This will chamber. So you can see that, rightfully so, in the Taurus 357, that will chamber. Again, to show you the differences in the firearm construction, this is a more modern firearm, probably pretty close to the current Taurus 357 Magnum. Again, that's clear. So you can see the size, and this is a 6-shot versus the size of the Detective Special. And you can also see the differences in the latch. Now, this latch here, you can see is a little different than the Smith & Wesson latch. This is the Taurus cylinder latch. And now you have the J-frame latch. You can see how that's cut differently. Screws look very similar. Hammers are a little different too. On the J's, they have more of a sticks out closer to you, I guess. Maybe not closer, but just pointing towards the firer. If you can see that. On the Taurus, look how that's rounded back. You can see that rounded back. Sight differences also. On the Taurus, look at that sight. Adjustable rear with the white notch. And then you've got the orange front. On your Smith & Wesson J-frame, this is trough, I believe it's called. So this is just really machined into the firearm. This is not movable or anything. And then this is your fixed front sight. So these are non-adjustable. You can see how that picks up light even, which is what it's supposed to do. And it's supposed to, with those cuts, kind of deflect the light down, but allow you to see the front. A lot of guys will paint this front sight so they can see it a little bit better. Not a bad idea. On your Colts, similar trough. You can see that there. Maybe you can see the difference in the cuts. That's a Smith & Wesson. Almost looks a little deeper or slightly different. On the Colt, you can see how they cut theirs. And on this, it almost looks like it lets in a little bit of light or notched towards the firer. This does have a little dip here too. And then this looks more open on the Colt to me, towards your front sight. So that back looks kind of open. Then this is what the J-frame sight picture looks like. So just some differences there. The beefiness of this Taurus is undoubtable, and you can compare that to this guy right here. You can really see the differences. They have a similar feel, but the Taurus 357 definitely feels larger. Also on the Taurus 357, you have this protection up here for your ejector. So this is what works your empties out. And you can see how they put a nice protective device. I guess sometimes people call that a full lug under barrel. Here's your barrel. There's this. Or I guess you could refer to that as a shroud. And then you'll see on the older firearm, they didn't really protect that piece, but it's very accessible up front. So when you go to unload, you really have pretty easy access to this, but I guess it's all the same when you open them up. But this seems, to me, this seems pretty pronounced, pretty easy to use, but also could potentially get damaged sticking out like that. Now on this one, pretty pronounced. They're both, I mean, they're both pretty good. When you go to the J-frame, you can see they kind of did add this protection piece right here, or locking piece. So you don't really see that on the older Colts. But you can see how they kind of widened this out at the front. I kind of like that design, that idea. So it gave you a little bit more surface area. On this, and both this and the Taurus, these are both kind of in line, although this is knurled. But I think this offers a little bit more protection because you don't have a loose piece up front like this. Now, as far as the sight goes, I find it very interesting. The Colt had this really pronounced front sight, which I kind of like because it looks very easy to pick up when you're pointing the firearm. And then, oddly enough, it looks very fine if you look at that view. It almost reminds me of like a lollipop. Guys used to say lollipop your sights. It's pretty close to what a lollipop, I mean, just the stem would look like on the Colt, as opposed to Smith. You can see it doesn't really look like a lollipop. I mean, it kind of looks like a bar. It does almost in a way look like it widens out slightly at the top, but I'm barely perceiving that little additional width there. That's what she said. That's enough of that. You can see I keep this one very, very clean because this is one of my carry guns, and that's oil coming off of it. As far as a carry gun, these are great, but you'll get rust in here. I mean, I don't care how good you are. If you keep this close to your body and it's sweaty, it's hot outside, you're going to get rust up inside there. So I'm just telling you, try to keep that clean. Every so often, too, you're going to get dust in these when you're doing concealed carry. What I use for concealed carry, great piece. It's lasted me forever. It's a Sanus. The Sanus holds your speed loader. Got 5 extra rounds. This is for your J-frame. Always have 5 rounds when you leave the house, so you have a total of 10 rounds. I know people might not think that's a lot. It's got this grip for when it goes in your pocket. And surprisingly, this little tag is still on here, which shows you their quality. At least this one was pretty decent quality. Not even that little tag tore off, which I think says N3. So I would highly recommend something like this. Fly paper, I think some guys call this. There's different textures, so pick the one that you're going to like the best if you're carrying this in your pocket. But this goes very easily into a pants pocket. You're going to have to pick your pants carefully. Might want to go a little baggy with your jeans. If you're going jeans, sometimes they can be too tight and they can show what you're carrying. Or go with a cargo pant, and just make sure you get, on cargo pants, they vary. Slightly deeper pocket will definitely conceal this piece here. So I'm going to reload this and put it away because this is going to be ready to go. The way that I load, I have a certain way that I do it. So when I'm doing 38 special for carry, always make sure I check the cylinder, rotate it in first, and make sure I got a little rotation so there's no bobble, no problems, anything like that. You want to make sure that, somehow you didn't get bound up with this piece. It can happen. And you can always check right here for full rotation right before you load it. And you're going to go in, lock it, hammers down, obviously. I don't think you can even get the cylinder open with the hammer back. So we're going to put that away. Yes, I did somewhat point this at my hand, but I have this in my pants every day. These are super, super safe to carry loaded. All right. Not doing anything with this Magnum because right now I do not have my Magnum loaded. It will be in the safe. Thank you guys. Please like and subscribe. Just wanted to show you a nice comparison of the Colt Detective Special. This is an original. It did take me a lot of work to clean this up because look at that. You can even see the pony on there. This was covered in dust and rust, and this just basically laid in someone's house, and it was a mess, guys. It was loaded when I got to it. It was covered in, like I said, dust and rust, this whole thing. And I actually soaked it. I got it unloaded, luckily. Got the cylinder open, soaked it in oil, motor oil. I think I took off the grips and just let this whole thing bathe in motor oil for like a week because it was bad. Scrubbed everything down on it. I didn't use any abrasives, but got it back in working order. I mean, you can still see there's a little bit of rust on the front, but this rust was covering the whole thing. I mean, it looked really, really rough. It didn't even look survivable. Probably why the person gave it away. But you can see some of the rust damage to it. But now it's fully functional, thankfully. So yeah, these do clean up. Good firearm. Great find. Colt 38 caliber Detective Special. Thank you guys. Please like and subscribe. Chilios2222 out.